I want to start today's conversation with a specific image. It's an image that, quite frankly, probably shouldn't exist if you're following the standard rules of religious history.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong.
It's certainly not the kind of thing you'd see in a children's book or hear in a standard sermon. It definitely catches you off guard.
No, not at all. So picture this. You have Moses, Musa, the heavyweight champion of the prophets.
Right.
The man who split the Red Sea, the one who stared down Pharaoh, brought the actual tablets of the law down from the mountain.
A major, major figure.
Exactly. And he's at home, maybe resting, and a visitor just walks in. And this visitor is the angel of death, Lag al-Maut.
Uh-huh.
And the angel basically says, I'm here for you. I'm here to take your soul.
The final appointment, the one meeting that nobody gets to cancel.
Right. And in, 99% of religious stories, this is the moment of, total submission.
Oh, of course. The head bows, the final prayers are said.
Yeah, the soul just drifts away peacefully. But Moses looks this angel right in the face, and, he slaps him.
And it's not a symbolic slap either.
No, this is a haymaker.
Mm-hmm.
And the text says he strikes the angel of death so hard that he gouges out the angel's eye. He physically damages a celestial being.
It is a shocking narrative. And honestly, for centuries, it's been a magnet for criticism. It's the kind of story that makes people just stop and say, wait a minute, is this actually in the text? Did I read that right?
And it is.
It is. It's right there in the most authenticated collections, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. It's canon.
So our mission today isn't just to, gawk at the violence of it, though it is pretty startling. We're actually going to dig into a very specific text. It's like a defense dossier, really.
Uh-huh.
It's titled Defending Moses, the Slapping of the Angel of Death. And this is a classic example of what's called Difa al-Hadith.
Apologetic literature.
Basically, yeah. How do scholars become defense attorneys when a sacred text seems to, contradict logic or a prophet's known character?
Exactly. And what's so fascinating about the source material is that it doesn't shy away from the awkwardness of it all. It doesn't try to, delete the story or immediately say, oh, it's just a metaphor.
Right.
Instead, it builds this multi-layered defense. You've got legal arguments, metaphysical arguments, theological ones all, to explain how a prophet can punch an angel and, maybe more importantly, why God didn't punish him for it.
It's almost like a forensic analysis of a divine altercation. But okay, before we get into all the defense arguments, we really need the raw facts. You have to walk through the narrative exactly as it appears in the primary source, because the devil, or in this case maybe the defense, is in the details.
Right. So the story, the narration, it comes from the companion Abu Huraira, and the setup is pretty stark. The angel of death is sent to Moses.
Okay.
Now, we have to pause right here because the form the angel takes is absolutely crucial to the whole story, and we'll definitely get to that when we talk about the legal defense.
Got it.
But for now, he just arrives. He doesn't knock. He just enters and says, answer your Lord.
Which basically means time's up.
Yeah, time's up.
Yeah.
It's a demand, not a request. He's issuing a divine warrant.
Okay.
And Moses reacts with what the text describes as a sack. It's a hard blow, a slap, a strike. And the result is immediate physical damage to the angel's eye.
Wow.
And the angel actually retreats, he leaves, he ascends back to the divine presence and says, and this one line is so important for the critics, he says, you sent me to a slave who does not want to die.
Oof. That is a damning report. He's framing Moses as, rebellious?
Exactly. He doesn't want to die. That implies he's attached to the world, which is typically seen as a spiritual flaw,
Yeah, that's the big criticism. That's what the critics latch on to.
Precisely. But here's the plot twist. God doesn't reprimand Moses. He doesn't say, go back down there and punish him. No. God simply restores the angel's eye. He fixes the damage. And then he sends the angel back down with a completely new set of instructions.
And this is what I was calling the ox deal.
Yeah, the ox deal. I like that. So the angel returns and says, place your hand on the back of a bull, an ox. And for every single hair that comes under your hand, you will be granted 1 year of life.
I was actually trying to visualize this earlier. Have you ever looked at the hide of an ox or a bull? It's so dense, even a small hand span.
Yeah.
We're talking about thousands of hairs.
Oh, easily. Thousands. It's effectively an offer of immortality, or at least, life until the end of the age. It completely removes the immediate threat of death.
Right.
So if Moses really does want to live, the door is now wide open for him.
So if we follow the logic of the complaint, that Moses slapped the angel because he was afraid of dying, this is his golden ticket. He should just take the deal.
You'd think so.
He gets to live for another, what, 3,000 or 4,000 years? Maybe more.
You would absolutely think so. But Moses asks just one question, the Ma. Then what?
Then what? After all the hairs run out, after the millennia pass, what happens then?
And the angel says, then death.
It's the inevitable full stop. You can delay it, but you can't delete it.
And Moses just says, Philean, then now.
Then now, just like that.
If the destination is the same, I might as well go now. And then he just makes one final request to be buried a stone's throw from the Holy Land.
That pivot, I mean, from this incredibly violent slap to this calm, serene, then now, that's what this entire text, this entire defense hinges on.
It is. Because it creates this massive contradiction. If he was so afraid of death, why on earth do he reject thousands of extra years of life?
But if he wasn't afraid of death, why did he slap the angel in the first place?
It just doesn't add up.
Right, and that is the core conflict. And to answer that, our source opens up with Defense Exhibit A. Let's call it the stand your ground defense. This seems to be the argument the author really relies on the most.
This is the argument put forward by scholars like Ibn Hibban and Ibn Khuzaymah, and its entire foundation rests on one premise, that Moses did not know who was at his door.
Okay, let's play that out. Because, to the modern listener, that might sound a little bit like a convenient excuse.
You can, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it was the police, so I punched him. It feels like a lawyer finding a loophole.
It does sound like that at first, but you have to look at the context they're building. These scholars argue that the angel of death didn't come in his cosmic form with wings and light and terror.
So not the full awe-inspiring angelic reveal.
No, he came in the form of a man, a generic human being.
So from Moses' perspective, he's just sitting in his living room, maybe reading, and some guy just walks in.
Some stranger just walks in without knocking, without giving the salam greeting, and says, I'm taking you away.
Okay, that completely changes the temperature of the room. That's not a divine appointment, that's a home invasion.
Exactly. And the source leans very heavily on the known personality of Moses. He's described as having intense gaira.
I want to stop on that word.
Gaira.
Because we usually translate it as jealousy, but that feels kind of small, doesn't it?
It does.
Like the boyfriend wondering who you're texting. That's not what we're talking about here, is it?
Not at all. Gaira in this context is more like a protective fury. It's actually seen as a virtue in this tradition. It's that feeling you get when someone violates a boundary that is sacred to you, your family, your home, your honor.
So a righteous possessiveness.
A righteous possessiveness. That's a great way to put it. Moses is a man who guards his sanctuary. He doesn't tolerate intrusion.
So a stranger breaching his home?
Yeah.
That would trigger this gaira. It's a sort of biological protective response.
Yes. And here is where the source pulls out a fascinating legal precedent. It cites a ruling in Islamic jurisprudence that's all about privacy, specifically the peeping Tom ruling.
I'm sorry, do you say there's a specific religious ruling on peeping Toms?
There is. It's actually quite specific. There's a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad says, essentially, if someone is peering into your house without your permission, and you take a pebble or a stick and you poke their eye out.
You're allowed to poke their eye out.
Seriously. The ruling is that there is no kisas, no retaliation, and no sin upon you. You are not liable for the injury you cause.
That sounds incredibly harsh to modern ears.
Hey.
You catch someone looking in your window and you can blind them.
It is harsh, but we have to try to understand the legal philosophy behind it. In this particular legal system, the home is a fortress. It's the one place where a person is fully vulnerable, you're unveiled, you're asleep, you're private.
Right.
By peering in or entering without permission, the intruder basically forfeits the legal protection of their own body. Their eye becomes effectively waste because they used it to violate your sanctity. The Hurmat al-Bayt, the sanctity of the house, overrides the sanctity of the intruder's eye.
I see. So the author of this text is arguing that Moses was essentially applying this law.
Yes, that's the argument. He's saying that Moses saw a human intruder violating his space and, for all he knew, threatening his life. Under the law of self-defense and privacy, Moses had the right to strike him.
So it wasn't an act of rebellion against God?
Not at all. It was an act of defending the Hurmat al-Bayt. Ibn explicitly says, if Moses had known for a second that this was an angel sent by God, he never would have slapped him. That would be apostasy. But because he just saw a man, his action was legally justified.
But I have to push back a little here. This is Moses. He's a prophet. He speaks to God directly. He's seen the burning bush. Doesn't he have some kind of, spiritual radar? Shouldn't he look at this guy and see the pixels glitching a little? Shouldn't he just know it's an angel?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? He should have known. But the source immediately counters this by bringing in the heavyweights, Abraham and Lot.
The biblical narratives that are also in the Quran.
Right. The source basically asks, when the angels came to Abraham, did he know who they were?
Well, no, in the story, he rushes to roast a calf. He prepares a whole feast for them.
Exactly. You don't cook veal for angels. They don't eat. Abraham thought they were hungry Bedouins, maybe some travelers passing through. He was stressed about being a good host. He didn't realize they were angels until they refused the food and told him why they were there.
And what about Lot?
Lot was even more stressed out. The angels came to him in the form of handsome young men. Lot was terrified that the townspeople would try to abuse them. He was sweating, panicking, trying to figure out how to protect them.
If he knew they were archangels capable of, nuking the entire city, which they eventually did, he wouldn't have been so worried.
Not at all. He would have told the townspeople, go ahead, try it, see what happens. But he didn't. He was genuinely afraid for their safety.
So the precedent is set. Even Abraham, the friend of God, can be fooled by an angel in a human disguise.
Exactly. The source argues, if Abraham didn't know, why do you demand that Moses should have known? Prophets are human. Their eyes are human. Unless God chooses to reveal the unseen to them, they just see a guy in a robe. They don't have 247 X-ray vision into the spiritual realm.
Okay, so under this theory, the slap was a mistake.
A
simple case of mistaken identity.
A permissible mistake. And the proof, according to the source, is what happens next. When the angel comes back the second time, something has changed.
His eye is fixed.
His eye is fixed, which is a miracle in itself. And he delivers this very specific supernatural message about the ox hairs.
Right. That's the proof of authority.
That's the proof. Once Moses sees that miracle and hears that specific offer, the stranger mask just falls away. He realizes, oh, this is the angel of death.
And his entire demeanor just flips instantly.
Instantly. There's no more resistance. There's no second slap. It's just then now. And this proves, according to the defense, that the initial violence was never about hating death. It was about not recognizing the messenger.
That does tie up the legal side pretty nicely. But it leaves this massive physical question. You mentioned Moses gouged the eye.
Yes.
How do you gouge the eye of an angel? I mean, aren't angels supposed to be made of light? Non-physical entities? It's like trying to punch a laser beam or, strangle a ghost. The physics don't seem to make sense.
And that is exactly where the source pivots to defense strategy number 2. The metaphysics of the avatar.
The avatar.
Well, that's my word for it, but the source quotes the scholar Ibn Qutayba, and his explanation is very close to our modern concept of an avatar, or maybe even a hologram. He uses these Arabic terms, tamthil and takayil.
Okay, help us with the definitions there.
Tamthil means representation or likeness. The idea is that angels, in their true essence, are immense cosmic beings. If an angel showed its true form to a human, it might just annihilate them by proximity alone.
Too much to handle.
Way too much. So to interact with us on our level, they have to sort of compress themselves into a form we can process. They take on a certain density to become visible.
So the body that Moses saw wasn't the angel's true self. It was more like a vehicle he was driving.
That's a perfect analogy. Think of it like a VR headset or a character in a video game. If you punch the character on the screen or if you smash the VR headset, you haven't actually hurt the player sitting on the couch.
You just damaged the interface.
You've damaged the interface. That makes the whole eye gouging thing make a lot more sense, doesn't it? He didn't blind the angel of death for all eternity. He just broke the lens on the camera he was using to look into our world.
Okay, that's a very compelling image.
Ibn Qutayba argues that the angel's true spirit was completely untouched. And that's why, when he returned to God, the eye could be restored so easily. It was just a matter of, resetting the image or fixing the vehicle.
But there's another layer to this section in our notes, the test theory. It seems some scholars think that maybe this whole mistake wasn't entirely accidental.
Yes, that's right. This is a view you see from scholars like al-Baghawi and Ibn Aqil. They suggest that God actually intended for this confrontation to happen. The whole thing was a divine trial.
A trial for who? For Moses?
For both of them, potentially. Maybe a test for the angel to see if he could practice patience with a particularly difficult subject. And maybe a test for Moses regarding his attachment to life. But it also speaks directly to Moses' specific personality type. The source uses the Arabic term hidda.
Hidda? What does that mean?
It means sharpness, intensity, a fiery temper.
Moses is definitely the action hero of the prophets, isn't he? He's not really the passive, meditative monk type.
Not at all. And the source actually lists his resume of intensity to prove that this slap isn't out of character for him.
Oh, this should be good.
It mentions him pushing the Egyptian, which accidentally killed him. It talks about him throwing down the tablets of the law, the actual physical word of God, when he came down from the mountain and sought the golden calf.
Which is a huge deal. He threw the commandments on the ground and smashed them.
And he grabbed his own brother Aaron, who was also a prophet, by the beard and the hair and dragged him.
So yeah, slapping an intruder is actually pretty on brand for Moses.
Precisely. The argument is that God chose Moses knowing he had this nature. This sharpness was part of why he was so effective against a tyrant like Pharaoh.
That makes sense. You don't send a passive, soft-spoken person to confront a man who claims to be a god. You send Moses.
Exactly. So the slap is just an expression of that same God-given intensity.
It's interesting to think that his greatest strength, that fire he has, is also what leads to this conflict with the angel.
And the scholars argue that God deals with Moses according to that nature. He doesn't punish him for the slap because it's authentic to who Moses is. They describe it as a unique dialogue between a noble angel and a fiery prophet. It's just operating on a different set of rules than you or I would face.
So, okay, we've got mistaken identity and we've got the metaphysical avatar explanation. But we still have to deal with the angel's actual complaint.
He does not want death.
Right. Even if he didn't recognize the angel himself seems to think Moses was resisting the whole concept of dying. And logically, a prophet should be eager to meet God, right? Isn't it a theological problem to say a prophet hates death?
It is, and this brings us to defense strategy 3, the theology of death and infallibility. The source addresses this complaint head-on.
So how do they spin? He does not want death.
Well, one view is pretty straightforward. The angel was just speaking from his experience of the slap. He interpreted the violence as a refusal of death.
He was giving his report based on the data he had.
Exactly. But the reality, this view argues, was that Moses didn't hate the idea of meeting with God. He hated the suddenness and the method.
It's the difference between saying, I don't want to leave this party, and I don't want to be dragged out by a bouncer I don't know.
That's a great way to put it. But there is a more technical theological argument here, and it involves something called the choice principle. The source cites a hadith that says, God does not take the soul of a prophet until he is given a choice.
Okay, so that's a rule. Prophets get an RSVP option. They get to choose the time of their departure.
Yes. And Al-Qurtubi, a very famous exegete, argues that in that first visit, the angel of death didn't offer the choice. He just walked in to take the soul.
So he broke protocol.
In Moses' eyes, yes. So Moses might have slacked him because he was actually enforcing the divine protocol. It's like he was saying, hey, you can't take me yet. I haven't been given the option. You are violating the procedure.
So Moses was technically in the right on a sort of bureaucratic level. He was filing a formal complaint via a slap to the face.
You could absolutely say that. And notice what happens the second time. Once the ox hair offer was made, which was the choice, Moses accepted immediately. This proves, the argument goes, that he never hated death itself. He just required that the proper procedure be followed.
And that all connects to the broader idea of infallibility, or isma, which the source emphasizes really heavily.
Right. The source is very firm on this point. Prophets are infallible. They are protected from major sins. The author completely rejects any interpretation that implies Moses committed a sin here.
He has to.
He has to. He asserts that Moses is one of the Ulu Alazam, the arch-prophets, the possessors of determination. God himself says to Moses, I have chosen you for myself.
So the ultimate conclusion of the source is that the slap cannot be a sin. It has to be a misunderstanding or a legal right being exercised or maybe just a divine mystery. But it can't be an act of rebellion.
Correct, because if it were rebellion, God would have reprimanded him. But he didn't. Instead, God offered him this incredible gift, the thousands of years of life. That implies divine approval, or at the very least, acceptance of Moses' reaction.
Now, this is where the text we're looking at takes a very, very sharp turn. We spent the whole first half of this deep dive looking at the defense internal to Islamic theology. But the source material doesn't stop there, does it?
Not at all. It goes on the offensive.
This is the tu quoque segment.
Exactly. That's Latin for you also. It's a classic debate tactic. The author pivots to the critics, and he seems to be thinking specifically of Christian critics or biblical polemicists who might mock this story. And he basically says, you think our text is strange? Let's open up yours for a minute.
And just to be clear, we, as your guides here, are just reporting what's in the source material. We are neutral observers of this particular argument. But the examples the author pulls out are, well, they're vivid. He's clearly trying to make a point about how all religious texts can look weird if you squint at them the right way.
Oh, they are vivid. The author's goal here is to show that every religious tradition contains narratives that, if you look at them superficially, can seem shocking or irrational. He's just trying to level the playing field.
So let's look at his first critique. It's about Jesus on the cross.
The source cites Matthew 27.46. This is the famous, powerful moment where Jesus cries out from the cross, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
And what's the source's argument here? Because that's an incredibly emotional and central moment in the Christian tradition.
The author contrasts this directly with the criticism of Moses. He says, critics claim Moses didn't want death and that this is a flaw. Then the author argues, well, look at Jesus in your own text. He is screaming in despair, asking why God has abandoned him.
I see.
The author is essentially asking, why is Moses slapping an angel he doesn't recognize a sign of fear of death, but Jesus screaming at God that he's been forsaken isn't seen as a problem by these same critics?
He's trying to expose what he sees as a double standard in how the emotional reactions of prophets are judged. If Jesus can despair, maybe Moses can fight.
That seems to be the point. Then the source moves to what it calls the logic of the Mount. And this is about Jesus' entry into Jerusalem.
Oh, the Palm Sunday story.
Yes. The source cites Matthew 21.7, and it hones in on the specific wording. The text describes the disciples bringing a donkey and a colt. It then says they put their clothes on them, plural, and Jesus sat on them, also plural.
Wait a minute. He sat on two animals at the same time.
That is the literal reading that the source seizes upon. The author argues that it is logically impossible, he calls it a fallacy, to ride a donkey and a colt simultaneously unless you're, straddling them like a circus act.
That does sound like a visual impossibility. Very strange image.
The source claims this was a fabrication or maybe just an error by the gospel writer, Matthew, who was trying too hard to fulfill an Old Testament prophecy that mentioned a king coming on both a donkey and a colt. The point the author is making is, you mock the physics of Moses slapping an angel, asking, how can a physical hand hit a being of light? End quote. But your own text has a man riding two separate animals at the same exact time.
It's a very literalist critique designed to highlight the strangeness. He's basically saying, you think my physics are weird? Check your own physics.
Yes. And then it gets even stranger. We get to the talking nature elements. The source brings up a story from the book of Judges, chapter 9, the parable of the talking trees.
The talking trees. I have to admit, I don't remember that one from Sunday school.
It's a parable within the Bible, but the source treats it as a narrative oddity. In the story, the trees go out to anoint a king over themselves. They actually talk. They go to the olive tree, the fig tree, the vine.
And they ask them to be king.
Yes. And each one refuses because they say they don't want to stop producing their oil or their fruit. Finally, they ask the bramble.
The prickly bush.
Yes, the thorny bush. And the bramble accepts the kingship, but it immediately threatens them. It says, if you aren't sincere in anointing me, then let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon.
That is surreal. You have trees engaging in political discourse and threatening each other with arson.
And the source's argument is simply, you have talking, political trees in your scripture. Why is a physical angel that can be slapped so hard for you to swallow? Why is my supernatural story considered ridiculous, but your supernatural story is considered a profound parable?
It's a pot calling the kettle black argument.
Very much so. And finally, the source brings out what it considers the heavy hitter, the talking donkey.
Yes.
This is the story of Balaam from the book of Numbers, chapter 22, and it's actually the perfect parallel to the Moses story.
How so? What's the connection?
Well, in this story, Balaam is riding his donkey. The angel of the Lord stands in the path with a drawn sword ready to strike. But here's the kicker. The donkey sees the angel, but Balaam, the supposed prophet figure, does not.
Okay, so the roles are reversed. The animal has spiritual sight, and the human is blind to it.
Exactly. The donkey stops or swerves to save Balaam from the angel. Balaam gets angry because he thinks the donkey is being stubborn, and he hits it. This happens 3 times. Finally, the text says, God opens the donkey's mouth.
And the donkey talks?
It talks. It says, what have I done to you? Why are you hitting me? And they actually have a debate. Balaam stands there and argues with his donkey.
He's having an argument with a donkey on the side of the road.
Yes. And eventually, after this conversation, Balaam's eyes are open, and he finally sees the angel that his donkey could see the whole time. The source basically says, look at this. You criticize Moses for slapping an angel he didn't recognize, but your own text has a man beating his donkey because he couldn't see the angel that the donkey could see.
It's a direct hit.
Yeah.
The subtext is, my prophet slapped an angel. Your prophet got into an argument with his livestock because he was less perceptive than the animal he was riding.
That's precisely the point the author is driving at. The source uses these examples to say, look, religious texts operate on a logic of the miraculous and the unseen. If you strip away the faith and just look at them with pure, cold skepticism, they all look strange. So don't throw stones or slaps if you live in a glass house.
It's a plea for a consistent reading. If you allow for mystery and the supernatural in your text, you have to allow for it in mind.
Precisely.
So let's try to bring this all together. We've gone from the slap itself to the peeping Tom legal defense to the holographic angel theory, and then all the way to the donkey versus angel comparative critique. It's a lot to synthesize.
It is a dense theological roadmap, for sure.
If we had to summarize the absolute core of the defense that we found in this source, what are the pillars holding it up?
I'd say there are 4 main pillars. First, mistaken identity. Moses was just defending his home from what he saw as a human intruder, so it wasn't rebellion. It was the legal protection of privacy.
Okay, pillar 1.
2, the metaphysics. The slap hit a physical representation, a kind of avatar, not the true angelic spirit. So it was a glitch in the interface, not a wound to the soul.
Right.
3, theological consistency. Moses did not hate death. He accepted it immediately once the proper choice protocol was offered to him, proving his submission.
And the 4th.
And 4, the tu-quoque argument. Every scripture has moments that defy rational explanation, and singling this one out for mockery is hypocritical when your own texts have talking trees and debating donkeys.
It really does highlight the importance of context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you just read the headline, Moses slaps angel, it sounds absolutely crazy.
It sounds absurd.
But when you read it through the very specific lens of Islamic law, prophetic history, and metaphysics, it becomes a coherent, albeit very intense part of a larger theological system.
Absolutely. It teaches us that to really understand ancient texts, you have to try to put on the glasses of that tradition. You have to understand their definitions of what an angel is, what a prophet is, and what death itself even means. You can't just judge it by modern standards of politeness.
And speaking of death, I really can't stop thinking about that final offer, the ox hair test.
It's the most haunting part of the story, I think.
Think about it for a second. Moses is standing right there. The angel says, put your hand on this ox. Every single hair is a year of your life. That is effectively a blank check for more time.
It's an unimaginable offer.
He could have lived to see the rise and fall of empires, the coming of Jesus, the coming of Muhammad, the Industrial Revolution, the modern world. I mean, he could still be alive right now.
He could have been the eternal witness of history. He could have seen the fulfillment of everything he started.
But he just asks, then what? The answer is, then death. And he says, then now.
It completely recontextualizes our entire relationship with time. I mean, we fight for every extra day, every extra hour. Our entire modern world is obsessed with longevity.
Biohacking, medicine, safety regulations.
All of it. We just want more time. But for a prophet, it seems time isn't the real asset. Closeness to the divine is the asset. Once you realize that the delay wouldn't change the ultimate destination, the delay itself became pointless. Why would you wait in the lobby for 3,000 years when the king is ready to see you right now?
It's a powerful thought to leave our listeners with. If you were offered that ox hair deal, immortality, for as long as your hand covers the hair on a bull, would you take the years? Or would you, like Moses, see the inevitable and just say, then now?
That is a question that reveals a lot about what we truly value. Are we in love with the journey, or are we in love with the destination?
Indeed. A massive thank you to our listener for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most provocative texts we've ever covered.
It was a pleasure to unpack it.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep digging.